welcome to this new special episode of Continuum Gaming in English, as you may already have noticed. And today we want to talk about something pretty special. I'm pretty sure not many people have done something like this. As you can see, it's episode 200 we are doing this for, so it's a special occasion, of course. And what you can see here is we are going to print a custom cover, something like this from Moso, but done by ourselves, or myself in this case, for our smartphone, the Lumia 950 XL in this case. And this is of course a pretty long process, so I'm not going to do that in one part, but this is the first part. We will see if it's part 1, 2 and 3 or something, I'm not sure. We will see how many parts we will need for that. In general, I can tell you that it's a pretty complex thing to do and there's a lot of trial and error involved in that. But we are going to try it. Just see if we can do it, and maybe we can't do it, I'm not sure. We will see what's happening there. I am a 3D guy, if you didn't know till now, too. So I have a couple of different 3D printers, which are, for instance, MakerBots, and I have the Eligo Mars, which is, I have it at a different place, so I can't show it to you in person, but you can see the image here. This is an Eligo Mars. It's a resin-based printing machine, and I will show you this is more or less the uninspired product part here. It's pretty new in my hands, so I have it for, I think, 3 weeks or something now, and I just want to do something with it. It is a DLP-based printer, so something that is going to cure out a resin that is more or less pretty toxic in its fluid form, and it has to be hardened by some kind of an UV light, and like that you can, for instance, build stuff with it. If you want to know more about that, let me know. I will try to explain it to you in a special video then. But for now, as you can see, we are going to try that, and the first step to do that, of course, is to have some kind of a model to print. And let's show that model and what I did there and how I will print it. Yeah, and here you can see the case I designed for now. It's really just a small draft here, and I'm going to print it out, and let's see how that is going to fit. And if it's fitting more or less, I will add in more holes and stuff like that, because as you can see, there is, for instance, no hole to connect the USB-C to it, and there is no hole for the headphone jack, and no buttons at the moment at the side, but I will add all of those later on. But for now, I'm just trying to get a hang of it and see how large that one is and how precise I can make it. Because at the moment, this is really just version 1. It's normal for 3D printing and stuff like that you are doing it a couple of times in general, because you would have to have very, very precise measurements, and there's a problem with shrinking with all of these 3D printed parts we are using here. So in the end, we will have to see if that is going to work fine. There is one other problem with this, because my smartphone is just damn big. So even if you can see here is centimeters in here, that's not a problem. That's just because I wanted to have more of a precise part here. So to be very precise, I just increased the dimensions of it. But you can just scale it down or up very easily in the 3D printing software then. That's really, really easy. You should just make sure that the ratios of the different heights and width and stuff like that are going to fit. And this is Hush Animation Master by Hush.com if you want to have a look at this program. And because this smartphone is just too big for the build plate I'm going to use with my Eligo Mars, I have created 3 different parts which I will have to print separately, and then I can, for instance, glue them together or use the resin in this case to try to glue them together. So as you can see, this is the first part I'm going to use, the upper one, and that is now fitting to the build plate. And then we have 2 different other ones. So this is the middle part, and we have the lower part in this case, which is this one. And with that, I will be able to put it into Shitubox. That's the software I'm going to slice it with. So in 3D printing, you have to slice your models so that they are layer-based more or less, and like that you can then print them. So I will just open that up, get, let's say, the first object in here. It's a lot too large, of course, because as I mentioned before, it's very, very large at the moment. But just for the sake of it, we can just decrease it, so decrease the size of it. And all I have to do now is I will decrease it by this kind of amount. So just 1% of its real size of the object will be used here. And as you can see, it's more or less fitting. The red parts are the ones that are not fitting to the build plate at the moment. So we will have to turn it around. That's not a problem neither. So just try to bring it in. And as you can see, this is now fitting to the build plate perfectly, and we should be able to print it. And yeah, just to show you what's going to happen with the slicer box, if I go in here and I'm going to show you what is going to happen. So it's going to start like this, then it's going to build this up all the way up. And after a while, it will be ready like this. So these are more or less just the different layers we are going to print. And yeah, to print this now, I will have to set up a couple of different informations here. For instance, which kind of resin I'm going to use. We have the Eligo mass in this case, so with this part in here. We will have different informations about the resin. This is not really very important. Maybe this Resin Destiny, but the costs, for instance, are just for me to see how much that would cost to print it. Then I would have to specify a layer height, so it's 50 micron at the moment, so it's pretty small layer, so you really won't notice a bigger difference to, for instance, I don't know, really created melted piece or something. It's really not going to make it a big difference for that. And there are a couple of other different informations here. I could talk more about it if you wanted to in the second part of this episode or something, but I'm not going to do it in this. Infill, you can theoretically put in an infill in this kind of printer here. That's something, yeah, more or less special, because that's something that is not used for resin printers in general. It's more like an FDM solution, so if you want to know more about that, you should, for instance, visit my website, patchwork3d.de, for instance. There I'm talking more about that kind of stuff. But yeah, just let's slice this now. So this button will do that. I will click on that, it's slicing, and now we can have a look at the different layers that will be printed here. So this is from the upper version. You can see it's going to take about, yeah, something like 25 minutes, and we have to do that 3 times. So for the first iteration of this print, so you know why I'm going to print it not in this episode. But just to show you what's going to happen here, this is more or less the different positions, the different layers here. I might have to have a look at that too, because there is some kind of a banding, as it seems, but we will see what's happening there. That might still work pretty nicely. As you can see, the price will be pretty low for this little icon here, or this little part. It's of course 3 times of that, but that's something like, yeah, let's say 12 to 16 dollars. I'm not sure if all of them are exactly the same size, so maybe something like 16, not dollars, sorry, 16 pence in this case. So it's not really going to break the bank or something. Okay, and now I have to save it to a USB stick. I already have one in there, and I will just put it to my USB stick in this case. And this is of course case part 1, first one. Let's write it's a file. Okay, now I will just get rid of this part, and we are going to have a look at the second one, which is of course on my desktop in this case. going to use Z1, ZZ. And same thing to do here, so we will have to decrease the size, of course, to something that is fitting on the plate. We're going to move it around, and as you can see, this is a little bit different. Settings will be the same, and then we are just going to slice this down. As you can see, this is even a little bit less expensive as it seems. And now we are going to put it on this one too. Give it a sec. There we go. I will delete this again, and I will get the third one, which is this one. And same procedure. So decrease the size in this case. Of course, if I would have modeled it in the right dimensions already and in the right orientation, then it already would fit here. But as you can see, it's a pretty easy to solve problem. And here's the third part. So same settings, of course, but we are going to slice it again and we are going to put it on. So all in all, something like 10 cents or something this will cost me to print. For a resin part, of course, there is no energy levels or something in there, so energy, of course, costs money too. So that is maybe a bigger thing to consider here, but in the end, altogether, it might cost, I don't know, something less than €1 or so, I would say. Of course, there is not included my work time in it and stuff like that. So if I, of course, would include that, that would be a whole different story. But whatever, as you can see, this is more or less how you prepare your builds, how you bring it in. There are a couple of different steps I left out here. For instance, I would have to check the mesh before I'm going to put it over here. But since I already had it exported, everything seems to be fine. And yeah, now we are going to print this. Yeah, and so we are at a new location now. This is my basement, and in this kind of room I'm having here, I'm going to print everything. It's a normal behavior, especially for resin printers. It shouldn't be placed in a working place or something. It should be somewhere else, and there should be a good airflow going on in the place, or at least you should be able to create a good airflow in it. And that is because most of the resin-based printers are pretty toxic. That's about the resin. I will talk about that later. But first off, as you can see, we have a couple of different security measurements here to do. For instance, I will have to wear this kind of security gauntlet. So I'm going to put that on already. And I'm going to wear, for instance, this kind of mask. This is because there are toxic gases which are going to be emitted by the resin itself. When starting, that's not that much of a problem, but when it has printed a couple of hours, for instance, in this room, you should really protect yourself and especially your lungs. I will show you why that is. This is a box. This is a box of the resin I'm using here, so it's a standard resin for photopolymer stuff, or better to say a UV hardening resin, and I'm going to use that for that. And as you can see, here are some kind of security parts. I'm not sure if you can see it, I hope so. For instance, it's very bad for your lung system, and you shouldn't have it on your hands, for instance. The resin canister itself, it's going to look like this, for instance. We are going to print with the green one in this case, but it's more or less in this kind of parts here, and we really shouldn't get that on our hands, and of course drinking it or something would be very bad for us. But especially don't get it on your hand. It's better to not inhale it, at least not for a longer period of time. So we really should use different kind of security measurements here, and I will just use, as I said before, this gas mask. I'm going to use this kind of gloves here. So has to be a special kind of glove, so don't use latex, for instance, it's not a good one. You need to use those nitrile or nitrile or whatever that's called in English ones in this case. And yeah, the most important thing that you should have for something like that is isopropanol alcohol, which is this canister in this case. I have that. Isopropanol alcohol with a very high percentage. In this case, it's a 99.9% high isopropanol part, so pretty high. Very good for killing coronavirus, for instance, too. But that's a different story. I'm not going to take anything of this for corona parts or stuff. It's not about that. So even if you see me with this gas mask and stuff like that, it's not about corona. It's all about printing here because it's very, very bad for you to inhale that and stuff like that. Yeah, so let's have a look what I have here too. I have this kind of fabric-like paper towel, but it's not paper, it's fabric. And that's very important because we are going to have to wipe on different surface areas later on, which are pretty soft. So to not get any kind of scratches on it or something, we really need to use something like this. Of course, we have some kind of Kleenex paper towel stuff here. And there are a couple of different other things which are necessary for working with printed parts later on, but that's nothing we have to worry about now. Those, for instance, are the different containers I'm going to wash everything in, because the isopropanol alcohol is going to dissolve more or less the resin itself. So if you want to neutralize the resin itself, you really have to use the alcohol in this case. You could use ethanol or something like that too, but we are going to use the isopropanol because it's easier to get that and it's less expensive, of course, too. Yeah, and then I would say let's start. I have all the different things with me on my USB stick. Where did I put it? Oh, I already have put it into the 3D printer. So I would say let's start, and we will change, of course, the perspective here a little bit so I can show you the printer itself and not the curing station or the washing station I prepared for myself here, but the printer itself, which is standing right beside there. Yeah, and here you can see the 3D printer. It's a Lego Mars. It has this kind of UV light blocking cover over it. So this is acrylic, wet acrylic, and it's of course a little bit transparent, as you can see. And I can just remove this. And as you can see, we have a printing bed. This is a printing bed, or the printing head itself. It's a little bit different for resin printers than for FDM printers, but in the end, this is the build plate. This is going to be the part where the different materials or the parts we are going to print is sticking to. And this one will lower into this little kind of bezel here. And in that there is a resin. And if I remove this, I can remove it easily because you have to more or less clean it and stuff like that. I'm not sure if you can see it, but there is a little kind of foil in there. So as you can see, there is something, some light source that is reflected in there. And below that there is this little LCD display. And this will emit more or less UV light, or better to say, under the LCD display there is a UV light which is going to be emitted to this. The LCD can block off this UV light, and like that, this resin, for instance, can be UV cured with the light that is shining through this too, and then more or less that resin will harden at the parts where the UV light is hitting it, and like that we can print different kind of layers, and the build part will stick to that, and this one will lower in and out all the time, all over again. It takes a couple of hours probably until we will see something very, very nicely or really the end product or something. But we will see how it's going to be, because there is of course a little bit of try and error to it before we are going to get it right. Especially with such an object, I have never printed something like that before. So I'm going to put this now in, and I'm just going to tighten up these little screws here. So this is not going to move around. And now I can show you, you can lower that by manually too. And as you can see, this is going to lower down now into the bezel then, and it's going to work out then. I already leveled everything, so we don't have to do that now. But the next step that is going to happen is I'm going to fill in the resin, which is green in this case. I could use a different of other options there. I have green, I have red, which are all translucent. I have, I think, white and black, I'm not sure at the moment. But I could do different kind of materials here. I'm going to try it with green first, and let's see how it's going to work out. Maybe it's not, but we will see what's happening there. And yeah, now, since I'm going to open this bottle and pour it in there, I'm going to have to wear my gas mask now. And yeah, for that I'm not going to talk to you, because I'm pretty sure that through the mask you're not going to hear a lot of my talking then. But let's do that, and we will see how that is looking here. And here we are, gas mask is on. I'm going to use this kind of resin now. Yeah, and this will now take a couple of hours probably. Let's see what's taken there. Oh no, it's only half an hour, but we will see. Okay, and as you can see, it has been finished. You can see it on down here. It has taken about 28 minutes now. And now I can just remove this cover again. And as you can see, there's all kind of resin up here and over there and everywhere, so we really have to be careful now. I'm going to get the print head of it now, and after that I'm going to cut to a different perspective to show you what's going on then. So first off, I can just remove this. Just have to open this one, be a little bit careful, and I don't know if you can see it, there is the first part of the thing here that shouldn't happen. I have to use isopropanol alcohol to get rid of that later on, but as you can see, there's the first part already on this plate here. And what I could do now is I could let it hang for a couple of minutes or something, I think I'm not going to do that. I'm going to switch over to my current station now, and we are going to go on from there. Yeah, and here we have the part on it. It's pretty hard to see. I'm not sure if you can see that at all. Maybe if I hold it like this or something. It's really a very, very flat part, and there is of course some kind of a border for it. It's probably not the right size at the moment, so we will see what I have to do there furthermore, but for now this should be the first take. As mentioned before, we are going to do this a couple of times probably before we are going to have a really final product. But what we now have to do, of course, is to take care of the uncured resin in this case. I have prepared a couple of different pouches here for me, and in this case I'm going to use this fabric one. And more or less, hold on, there we are. This is isopropanol alcohol. It's already used for a couple of different parts, so it's not totally perfect anymore, but it should be enough. And I'm just going to very, very carefully try to cover up most of the parts here. You can see there's this little kind of shine in here, so it's green, the color kind I'm seeing there. And I'm just putting everything on here for a little bit of that. I'm not even sure if everything came out right, we will see that later. And of course we have to do that for all the different parts here. So the other side is of course a problem too. Everything you can't touch with your hand more or less should be, or what you can touch with your hand later on, better to say, should be cured or in any kind of way cleaned. And isopropanol alcohol is going to take that. Okay. First part, most of the stuff is off now. Going to put that down below. Get the next, just in case I need it. Now I can just go over that again. As you can see, it's already broken, but this is not going to be the final part, but whatever. Okay, so as you can see, there was no pint or anything on there anymore. So the next thing is we have to remove it from the build plate, which is pretty hard for such a part. So I'm not sure if we are going to do this without, okay, working out better than I thought. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to let it drop into this resin part there, or this curing station more or less. So it is more or less covered with alcohol now, and there should not be much that is going to happen there. So now I have to, of course, get a little bit of it again and get rid of this. In the end, it's more or less just touching it. So if the resin is touching alcohol, that's more or less already enough, but you should of course wipe it a little bit clean, just to be really, really sure about that. Okay, so this should be fine again. Going to, just in case I touched something in here, going to cover that too. Okay. And now I'm just going to put it back into the 3D printer here. Okay, so let's have a look at our part here. As mentioned before, I already destroyed it, and as you can see, it's probably not high enough. I have to increase the height for some reason. I'm not sure about that why. And there is some kind of problem with the model itself because there is no camera looking in here. So there is some kind of problem I have to figure out. I will do that in the next part and stuff like that. There is just too much to work on, and I don't know at the moment what the problem is. But as you can see, we have printed our first part here. It's very, very thin too, so maybe I'm going to increase this as a part here, we will see it. And this is not the final product anyway, because we are going to have to cure that even more, so it's not the final step to get a final product out of this. We are going to put that under a UV light now, and for that let's see how that is looking, and then I'm going to show you the next step for that. So, and as you can see, there is a UV station now. I'm going to put our new little part here in this now, just right behind the part here. I can try to put it up there, or it really doesn't matter that much. Okay, and now all I have to do is I have to switch on the light. This is a UV light, and this will cure the model to its final stage then. Probably a couple of minutes, it doesn't take too much time. For that I'm going to close this down. Just like this. So in this case all the different directions can now be emitted to it, so the light will reflect from the walls and stuff like that and go in. And after that we should be ready, and the first part, at least one of the iterations, is already there. I'm going to do all of this because the first part is already only used for having a look at the size, seeing if the size of the model is already right and stuff like that. So this is going to be a good working piece, but of course not the final product. Okay, so now I have let in a bit of fresh air here, and we can now have a look at the product itself. I'm going to open this. You shouldn't look into an UV light by itself. Of course, the camera doesn't have a problem. So I'm going to shut this out a little bit, and let's take it out and see what's happening here. So this is more or less the product we have created here. There is a little bit of isopropanol on it, but that doesn't matter much. And as you can see, this is how it's looking at the moment. Oh, sorry, you can't see anything. This is how it's looking at the moment. There is really a lot to do here, but as mentioned before, this is just a working piece, and we are going to do something different to this. And this was broken off when I created it, but as you can see, it's a first step. We are not going to be ready to put this to a new handy or something, but I can of course have a look at the dimensions, how the dimensions look, if that's fine, and then we will see what we have to do to get this to where it should be. But that's probably something for the next part then. Yeah, and here you can see our final product. Not really, of course. It's just the first draft, just to see how good I got the sizes right, and if everything else that I can test now from this, of course, broken piece in this case, is like I wanted it to be. And what I can see already is that the size itself is not that wrong or that off. I would have to make it larger, of course, a little bit, but as you can see, it's not totally off from our original piece, so that is a good sign, but still I would have to work on it very, very much already to get it to fit on this a little bit better. As you can see, there's a different diameter of the edges there, and the size itself is already pretty okay, I think. The other parts would of course fit in here then, and it might already be more or less usable like it is, but of course I will have to put in all the holes, and I will very likely have to do something about the height of it. I'm not sure. I think it's too not high enough, but I'm not exactly sure about that because there is this leather part and that is of course too much, so I would have to test it out further on, but I will not do that in this video. This video is already very, very long, so the next part will be about testing and of course about for instance doing the whole modeling and 3D modeling and preparing the next part and stuff like that. I'm not sure what I will show you there because it's a very long process, but in the end I hope you already have fun with it and had at least a little bit of a little peek into this topic, and we will see what's going to happen here in the next episode. Yeah, and there you have the first step of this production. I'm going to print the other parts out and do other things with it and do different iterations, of course, because as I mentioned before, I don't expect this to work out from the first time I'm doing this, but we will see what's going to happen, and I hope you had fun with it. Please don't forget to subscribe to this, hit the bell button to get all the different informations and the other parts of this videos, of course. If you like this videos, please give it a thumbs up, and other than that, if you have any kind of questions, please put them down below in the commentary section. I will try to answer everybody, and other than that, thanks for watching, thanks for listening. We will see us in the next episode again, and so have a nice day and bye.